two people?
Yes. And not just a rolled up piece of foam on the floor.
So he slept on the piece of foam as it was rolled up?
Well, no, like rolled out and then sleep on
Well,
it.
rolled out and rolled up are like precisely opposite things. Because I'm imagining him just like with his a roll of foam underneath him and one point like underneath his back and nothing else.
Yeah, I don't know. I kept saying rolled up.
That's what Matt's can do.
Why do I always feel tired when I'm consistently getting a good night's sleep?
What is a good night's sleep? 7 hours?
7, 8?
7 is bad.
Yeah.
Like you'd rather have 6. You would infinitely 6 or 8.
I don't wake up in
7 is just the worst.
I don't wake up in my REM cycle though. Usually, it's like when I'm awake.
Well,
I'm
it's
awake.
the fact that your REM cycle goes about every hour and a half, and 7 is not an interval of an hour and a half.
No. Of course, that's a guesstimation.
Roughly, but
Yeah. I mean, it's a guesstimation of how long I actually sleep, because then there's when you go to bed and you never know when you fall asleep.
you also gotta stay hydrated and eat vegetables and go outside.
Going outside is probably something I need to do more. That now that I work in an office with no windows, I need more outdoor time, which today would have been actually great for that. I don't know why I didn't. Oh, there's still time. We're gonna be outside in a little while.
Sure will.
Sure, Will Williams.
With one of our 2 listeners.
With one of our 2 listeners, perhaps both of them.
Probably both of
two
them.
of our 2
I don't think
listeners.
she works this weekend.
I'm pretty sure she has it off. I thought they were talking about that yesterday.
That's what I heard. Yeah, overheard, I suppose. The cartoon Hobbit didn't disappoint. It was about what I expected it to be.
It was very
It would have been much more fun to watch. Slightly tipsier than we were.
Yeah,
I mean, some of you were. James probably was decently up there.
I was doing pretty good. I had like a full 10-ounce glass full of Red Bull and ginger ale.
You mean Fireball?
Or Fireball, not Red Bull. Dang it!
Oof.
Dang it!
Because there is a difference.
There is quite the difference. I don't know why I keep wanting to say Red Bull now that instead of Fireball. It's
Well, it's
Fireball.
because
You're thinking about Red Ball.
Yeah, Red Ball. The
Our theoretical combination.
that we haven't dared to try yet,
Because it just sounds like a bad
Combination
time.
of Fireball and Red Bull.
which sounds
For
awful,
listener
but
land.
it's something to do just to say you've done it. Like an olive oil sandwich. My brother did that once, and it
You
was.
would be surprised at how good that is.
I mean,
I mean,
It
bread
depends
and
on the
olive oil?
bread.
Yeah, it does.
If you're using like Wonder Bread, that's gonna suck.
Yeah, it was like
bread sucks.
it was like whole wheat.
But if you got
If it's a nice like Italian or French bread, that's
Yeah, no,
actually
I can
good.
totally see that working. But that's kind of within like the
particularly if you toast it.
culinary profile.
I don't know. I don't know if you get to call it a sandwich if you toast it.
Really? So grilled cheese isn't
Well,
a
like,
sandwich?
When you're talking about just bread and oil,
Yeah.
like the oil sides are in.
Mm-hmm.
It's just 2 slices.
Like he just took a bottle of
toasted
olive
bread.
oil, just like shook it on the thing and just downed it.
Yeah.
Now, defining sandwich is this whole other conversation that we're not.
Yeah,
the
that is
podcast
an
for.
ongoing debate apparently in the broader world
Yes.
on the internet.
Is
Especially.
a hot dog a sandwich?
It depends on the definition of sandwich that you use.
Defining terms, the first
Yes.
step to any debate. What are your terms?
As long as culture continues to define sandwich in the common sense way that it does, as long as that stays, hot dog technically not really.
Now, you could say that if debating a sandwich is pursued in a leisurely way, you're contemplating the mysteries of life. You're doing so in a properly leisurely way. So it's not really wasting time to argue about is a hot dog a sandwich, because it's one of the more important things in life.
It's not so much the particular question
No.
as the
Pursuit of
Pursuit and the engagement.
contemplation.
Which,
No, we're not arguing over pointless stuff. We're contemplating the true nature.
That's what I don't get about people who like say they hate semantics. It's like, well,
it's very important what you're saying and what you mean.
What you need to be very precise in what you say.
Precision of language.
Yes. Thank you, Monsignor.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when you hear him say that and then you watch The Giver, which I think he was watching with us for part of it, if I remember correctly. That was a long time ago. Well, maybe like a year and a half, 2 years, something like that, but feels like a long time. Feels like a long time. Feels like a long time.
Yeah.
We Mama.
Ah.
Ow, ow, ow.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Help me.
Help me.
Such a dumb video. Your brother's look on his face when I showed him that for the first time. It was just like concern, amusement, and just like, why? All at once.
I think I know the look you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. He throws it.
What
his fiance?
For the uninitiated, it's what Freddie Mercury
slips and falls on the ice.
Slips and falls on the
There's
ice.
There's like a whole series of these where the guy that does videos clips various sound bites of Freddie Mercury and sentence mixes them together to sound like he's doing things like slipping on the ice and not being able to get up.
There's like a whole series of videos too. That
and buying a Wii.
Yeah.
or going on a roller coaster.
I think there's one video where it's like text-to-speech British man with a British accent voice of his mom is scolding him for all of his adventures. He goes on and asking for mama, and she's had enough. He needs to grow up. I think that was like it was like sort of a culmination. I'm not sure if he's still making those or what, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure he is.
This is dumb.
Just because it's
the right kind of dumb. And it's not like super choppy and obviously cut together like a lot of like.
But it is though.
In places.
No, but I mean
it is in places.
But it's not. It's not like super sentence mixed.
It's not so much that you can hardly understand the words.
With sentence mix videos, it just reaches a point where it's like you understand what they're getting at, but it doesn't really work that well.
Yeah. I mean, as funny as the shopkeeper from the CDI Zelda doing Rap God, it really didn't come together completely well.
Well, it's just
ridiculous.
too fast.
Yeah.
It's just, he did a 75% speed version. That's a little more intelligible. But
yeah.
Oh, what's the other one? Oh yeah, Dorime and Lego City.
that one's
really good.
The subtitles help with that one. Well, and then I think the familiarity with the meme probably
directly corresponds to your ability to understand the sentence mixing, like the DK rap steamed hams.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so good.
That one's really excellent.
Superintendent. That one's really good.
DK rap in general is really good for sentence mixing just because there's so many staccato syllables.
Donkey Kong and Wake Me Up Inside mashup. Donkey Kong, wake me up inside.
Donkey Kong,
save me.
Call my name and save me from the dark.
Evanescence.
No, Goofy.
Can't wait.
But like
Evanescence featuring Goofy.
Yeah. Well, like I think Evanescence is sort of the kind of band that's sort of asking to be made fun of in that manner, because I think it's one of those bands that like it takes itself too seriously. But that's sort of that emo rock of the mid 2000s kind of.
I don't know that you can call Evanescence emo.
I haven't listened enough of the genre.
Well, it's the music that emos certainly listened to in the mid 2000s, or at least the ones I knew.
How many emos did you know?
A few of my sister's friends. Definitely emo. I'm not sure if they are, but they.
So how can you be sure of your sample's size? Your sample.
Yeah, I don't think your sample size is wide enough.
Fair.
I went to Moorhead High School, in which there were many emos.
Something about
emo music is more like Paramore and My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
It's a little like lighter on the instrumentals.
Yeah.
I would say like Evanescence is the sort of thing like the fringe rock hicks, the non-country hicks listen to. Along with Nickelback and Five Finger Death Punch and
Seether.
things of that nature.
Seether. I went to a Seether concert.
Really?
Doesn't Ryan really like Seether? Or did he just take you to that concert?
He just took me to that concert. They were playing at the local, the Red River Valley Fair 2 years ago. And Ryan was, in town out of nowhere Friday night. He's like, hey, come to this concert. Okay. So we went there and drank beer. And I was like, oh, hi, Al. It's like, what are you doing here?
Al the Newman pal.
Al the Newman pal was there with his now wife that night as well. I was just like, oh, all right.
Because that's apparently just the place to be.
Drank beer and listened to Seether, and I only knew one song, and that's Broken, I think, and that's one that's not even all that rockish, but it kind of reminds me of that's sort of saddish rock feel to it. I don't know, that one. Yeah, it was entertaining enough. It was loud, but we weren't.
Welcome to concerts.
Well, yeah, but it was outdoors for one thing, so it's not as loud as the one other rock concert I've been to.
That is the nature of playing music outdoors.
Mm-hmm. I prefer it to indoor concerts for sure, because the Fargo Civic Center is not a great place for a rock concert.
I'll tell you what, on the stage end of things, on the band playing end of things, indoors is much better because of
environmentally.
rain.
Yeah, environmentally speaking, too, as variable of humidity and crap.
Yes.
I went to an Avett Brothers concert at the Civic Center freshman year of college.
What's that? I've heard of them, but what's their genre of music?
They do some folk.
Okay.
They do.
Is it kind of Mumford & Sons ish?
No,
not like that.
They do some almost country,
or more like Philip Phillips. Would that be more comparable?
Probably more like Philip Phillips.
Sure,
but a little more kind of upbeat and a little more forceful. Mm-hmm. Philip Phillips is just kind of nice. It's nice
to check him out. Every once in a while, I like have a folk kick. I need to.
Oh, you got to listen to the Oh Hellos.
Oh Hellos. I've listened to a little bit of theirs.
Dear Wormwood is such a good album.
I think Josh,
they have an album that's kind of loosely sourced around the Screw Tape Letters.
Yeah, the Wormwood.
Dear Wormwood.
Dear Wormwood. Yeah, that's definitely a Screw Tape Letters reference. I'll have to give them a listen, because sometimes I'm primarily a rock guy, but I do like to switch things up every so often. So I'll have to check it out. I kind of want to get back into listening to. I grew up listening to big band, and then so much though that I just got sick of it, and now I kind of have a better appreciation for it.
Sure.
So, because if you know me, you know that growing up I was raised as if it was in the middle of World War II, not by my parents, but my siblings, especially my two older brothers, because we'd play Army a lot. And so when I was 4, I genuinely thought we were defending our house from the Nazis in our woods, which obviously not. But taking the fight.
As far as you know.
As far as things can happen, in 2002 or whenever it was. And so the older brothers kind of dictated the movies we watched, the music we listened to. Not like they were controlling, it was just what they wanted to watch, and they're like, cool older brother stuff. Okay, sure. So we listened to a lot of big band jazz because that's what they listened to back then. And then it wasn't until I was like a teenager that we listened to other music. I mean, we've listened to Beach Boys and other stuff that my parents would like listening to.
Oh, yes. Stuck in the post-World War II.
Yeah, and American Orchestra.
Mm-hmm. You should listen to Tommy Igoe and the Birdland Big Band. They're more of a contemporary big band that I've played that song "Got a Match for You" before.
Yeah,
that's the group that did it.
There's Postmodern Jukebox, which does modern hits with a.
Well, it's not not like that.
That isn't
no, but
that's just pop songs, jazz flavored.
Yeah,
right.
Tommy Igoe's actual jazz.
Tommy Igoe, is it original stuff they make?
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have that sort of 40s feel to it all the time.
The 40s stuff is good, but it can be a little slow.
It gets old after when every song is that swing, 40s swing style.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
Speaking of 40s swing style.
Speaking of force,
which has absolutely nothing to do with demons.
Not even remotely with what we're talking about today. But
we could have transitioned a little better from Screw Tape letters.
Probably. That would have been a great
that would have been our opportunity, wouldn't it? Well, we're the Palladium Papist guys. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
Today we are talking about Diablo, which is the series of video. Any particular one or just the series?
We're covering 1 and 2 because you kind of 3 I don't like and is dumb.
There you go.
The story is garbage, and I want to not acknowledge that it exists.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to.
Okay.
Much like I do with WoW. I just pretend it's not there.
That's early podcast. Yeah,
that is an early podcast.
It doesn't.
I do want to revisit Warcraft 3 someday because we got through like an 1/8 of the story.
Yeah,
and I wanna. There's some really good storylines.
It's a little narrower in scope than the.
We're doing a different Blizzard game today.
Different Blizzard game.
Cool.
Tell us about Diablo, Riley.
So, Diablo is a series of video games created by originally Blizzard North, which was not. It had a different name hitherto, but they were kind of semi-independent from the main Blizzard studio, and they were called Blizzard North because they were in the north side of the Bay Area instead of in Blizzard's main headquarters.
To the uninitiated, San Francisco Bay, correct?
Yeah. San Francisco Bay, because that's where every technology ever happens.
Silicon Valley.
Yes. And Diablo 1 was a roguelike game, which is, for those unfamiliar, sort of like notoriously difficult and punishing of mistakes, and not in the same way that Dark Souls is. Like, like you find an item, like, you open a chest and it permanently like degrades your health. There's like some random effects that like sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, and you never know until you try.
And the layout of roguelikes are usually randomly generated,
right?
Or procedurally generated.
Typically.
It's not, you can't memorize the route and the enemies on it like you can in, say, Dark Souls, when you have to power through it.
It's designed to kind of be a unique experience every time you play it.
Right, and you need to get good at the mechanics and playing, like, on the fly, figuring things out.
And also just sometimes you get unlucky because we want you to suffer. But you also get rewarded sometimes, so it evens out in the long run. But it's
so when you are rewarded, then it's that much more
super nice.
Edifying.
Yes. Yeah. So Diablo 2 is a bit more of, it kind of became its own genre. It's kind of widely regarded as the first ARPG, action RPG, which is not so much of the role playing and more of the action. It's very like fast paced, high mobility, and just clobber stuff all the time is kind of what it evolved into. So the storyline of the Diablo games is, unless you guys have questions on that.
Is it? Let's see. Is the combat style sort of beat 'em up, kind of a little bit?
Yes,
magical beat 'em up.
It's many flavors of beat 'em up, which we will talk about a bit.
So I guess what is the setting then? Because
the setting is varied, but it is in the land of Sanctuary, which is this sort of middle plane between the high heavens and the burning hells. And it was created by Lilith, one of the characters. She's originally from the burning hells, but there's this big conflict between heaven and hell, and they're like, I don't want to deal with that. So they're like, let's make Sanctuary where we don't have to fight. And so they did. And that's where the game takes place, because, more people started to inhabit it.
I see.
But nobody really knows that in Diablo 1. I mean, it's like a long time since this thing happened, and the humans that have come to be don't really know about those events so much. But Diablo 1 is kind of the opening up of that world and figuring out what in the heck is going on. So in Diablo 1, you start off as an adventurer going to the town of Tristram, in which there's this old cathedral and there's a bunch of monsters coming out of it and terrorizing the town and such. And so you're like, I hear there's lots of money and treasure and cool stuff down there, so I'm going to go check it out. So you can be one of 3 classes, a warrior or a rogue or a wizard.
A what?
A wizard.
Okay.
As in Harry Potter.
A
wizard. A weezer.
Ooh woo! I look just like Buddy Holly.
Ooh woo! He looks just like Buddy Holly.
I saw that in a comment section somewhere, and I thought it was hilarious.
I don't even want to know.
Moving on.
Moving on. So you go into the dungeon, and you're like, there's lots of monsters here. You beat them up, and you eventually slowly start to uncover what's going on here. And you encounter some knowledge that Archbishop Lazarus, who is kind of a lackey of King Leoric, who's kind of the king of the region, kind of was working under him and found this thing called the Soul Stone, in which Diablo was sealed away.
Diablo is Spanish for devil, in case you didn't know that.
Did Thanos drop him off a cliff? No.
Nobody got dropped off cliffs.
Got it.
Some of the, if you believe what Diablo 3 has to say, he got there because the other, some of the other prime evils were like, this guy's too powerful, we gotta seal him up and get him out of here so we can rule hell. And so they did. So he's in the Soul Stone, and he still has some ability to like communicate, and he's like, hey, why don't you let me out? He's like, okay.
Yep.
And of course, that was what led to all of the destruction and doom and demons and such. You work your way all the way down, fighting progressively more powerful enemies, and then you go and kill Diablo himself at the very end.
This is Diablo 1?
This is Diablo 1. Still.
Okay.
And at the end, you sort of like, well, he's dead, but he's kind of like Sauron in as much as he'll come back eventually if we don't do anything about it. So we have to destroy the One Ring, the Soul Stone. So you jam it into your own forehead and carry on. Because
like you do.
That's intelligent.
Yeah. No way that's going to go
No
wrong.
way this could backfire.
There's
right?
no way.
None whatsoever.
What could possibly go wrong?
This is not what happens in Diablo 2. Nothing goes wrong with that whole situation.
No.
So, canonically, it's the warrior who is like, I think he's a son of King Leoric, I believe, canonically. He's the one who ends up defeating Diablo and jamming the Soul Stone in his forehead. And so it kind of starts to get the better of him at the start of Diablo 2.
Because who would have thought?
Who would have thought? And he basically, he turns into the Dark Wanderer. So he's kind of like Diablo in a human form, basically.
Slowly being taken over by this thing?
Yes. And he starts to make his way to the tomb of Tal Rasha, where his brother Baal is imprisoned, spelt like Baal, but pronounced Baal. And he's like, yes, I will free my brother, because he's on my side, and will beat up these puny humans, and mwahaha. And so here's where you come in. You start the game in the rogue encampment, which is in a place. And you have to get to the tomb of Tal Rasha, but there's some other demons in the way, so you beat those guys up. And then you skeet on over to the desert, where the tomb of Tal Rasha is. And Tal Rasha is like one of these Haradrim, which is a very old, very powerful sort of, like, they're more than humans, but they aren't like eternal beings or anything. So he's kind of been locked in a fight with Baal for all eternity, because that's the only way to keep Baal imprisoned. So you have to go and try to prevent Diablo from freeing Bale, but you get there too late, and he's already freed.
It's like, oh,
he's
great.
been bailed out.
He's been bailed out. You meet Tyrael, who's an archangel. He's like, I tried to stop them, but I couldn't. Yeah. But we gotta keep going, because he's gonna go free his other brother, Mephisto, who's the Lord of Hate. Diablo is the Lord of Terror. Bale is the Lord of Destruction. So you go to the swamp, and that's where Mephisto's been hanging out. There's a portal to hell in there that Mephisto's guarding, because that is a thing that he can do, apparently. Mm-hmm. So you beat him up, and then you go to hell, but just to hang out. You're not there forever.
No.
And so you go down there, and you go kill Diablo, because that's what the game is all about. Mm-hmm. And that's where the base game ends. In the expansion, you proceed to also go kill Bale. That's kind of the Act 5.
Sure.
Yeah, that's more or less the main story beats. It's quite a story light sort of genre.
Because like the action RPG, like the gameplay is the main draw.
Yes.
Give you just enough to get going.
The storytelling is kind of done as you go along in the world, kind of discovering characters and different like new areas and items and things that sort of complete the picture a little more.
That makes sense.
And the different classes that you can play they represent like different groups within the world that are doing different things.
Different factions, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah. The Act 5, for example, is where all the barbarians live. Mm. And
so they're like an expansion
Barbarians
class?
Is a playable class. No, they were one of the base ones.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. There were 2 expansion classes, Amazon and Assassin, who are both kind of... You don't get to go to the places they came from, but that might change in Diablo 4.
Oh, yeah.
Which is coming out soon.
Oh, interesting.
Soon TM, which means several years.
So what is it about Diablo 3 that it should be thrown out?
It was a cartoon.
Oh.
It wasn't actually a cartoon, but like the art styles of Diablo 1 and 2 are both very grim and gothic and dark and gory. Mm-hmm. It's just very visceral and, as realistic as 2002 isometric sprite animation can be. Or 1997 in the case of Diablo 1.
Yeah.
But Diablo 3 was like right shortly after the takeover that Activision, who's kind of like the parent company that is like, I don't know if they're merged, paired, what you would call it with Blizzard nowadays, but
oh, okay.
They brought in the marketing guy, and they said, we need to have a brand. What's the brand of this company? Oh, World of Warcraft with those like cartoonish graphics? Yep, that's going to be in every game from here on out. Nice. And so like they shoved a suit in charge of making game design decisions, which is good in any business but technology. In which suits completely ruin everything all the time.
Yep.
And so right off the bat, it like completely deviates from the spirit of the first 2 games. And the story was passable, but like it just stank of suits and it was just derivative.
Let's boil it down to the things people like and then change it, but keep those elements so it's still technically the same thing.
And they just had like, as you progress through the level, the boss would shout at you. He would just like, haha, you're a terrible hero, haha, you'll never get here, haha. Just like,
wow.
This is so cheesy, and like, it totally ruins the anticipation of the boss fight.
Yeah. It's like, bet you won't.
It would be one thing if it was a game series built around that kind of dynamic.
But it is totally not. I mean, like, in Diablo 2, there is, like, you do get interaction, quote-unquote, from the bosses. Like, as you're making your way down to Bale, he'll just, like, randomly shoot, like, max power spells from some of the classes at you, and you'll just get hit with a giant blizzard or a giant fireball.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not paying attention, you'll just get totally wrecked. Like, he'll just cackle and then the thing will hit you. So once you hear that, you're like, oh crap, I gotta run.
Run.
And that's a sort of cool interaction where you're just like trying to keep you on your toes and keep you a little bit scared.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the taunting boss is just like, shut up. Like, this is totally ruining any suspense I had about fighting you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yeah, the primary difference is the art style and sort of like...
the mindset that went with it.
Right.
I see.
Because changing art style alone isn't enough to completely sink a thing.
With Diablo, it kind of is. Like,
was 3 also in 3D?
Yes. But it's still isometric.
Right.
But it's, genuine 3D instead of...
Sprites.
Yeah.
Which the transition to 3D is probably also a factor, but then like the whole thing
you could have totally done it well.
No, for sure. There are other games that made the transition pretty well.
Well, there are other ARPGs that were like very dissatisfied with the way Diablo 3 did things, such as Path of Exile.
Let's go back to what we liked.
And Path of Exile is a fully 3D ARPG, but it's still like very much after the art style and game design in general of Diablo 2 with its own spin on it, because it couldn't be a Diablo sequel
because copyright, but
it was as close to being like Diablo 2 as it could be without breaching copyright.
So, people, we know exactly why you're playing this. It's because you didn't get what you wanted with Diablo 3. So
that is literally why Path of Exile exists. Seriously.
That's the reason several small indie games or like smaller games exist.
Yeah. Well, it's no longer an indie game.
Right,
like,
right.
It's pretty massive.
It may have
now.
been at the time.
Yeah. It definitely was. But
there's a fair number of indie
the
games
itemization and like they dumbed everything down dramatically in terms of stats and what you can do with your character. Like they literally copy and pasted World of Warcraft stat system.
Oh my gosh.
And level system. They made it cap out at 60, which is what World of Warcraft was, and they had it, like the just main stat is the only thing that affects anything, so you don't have to actually do anything unique or interesting. You just pile up one stat and all of your gear gives you that stat.
Oh, good
it's just useless. It's just a number that makes you do more damage instead of actually affecting different ways you can approach gameplay.
That's the least interesting way to level up.
Yes.
I have a bigger dice now. I will fight you.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some nuance to it,
right?
But they removed a lot of the complexity in building your character.
It's like, let's make this game more accessible.
Well, that's literally what they did, because they ported it to console, and they had always intended to. And that was why they dumbed it down so much.
Was that necessary?
To get it on console? Yeah.
Oh. I suppose there's probably menus and different things that are harder to...
For example, there's the inventory in Diablo 2 is, none of the items are uniformly sized. So you have to manage your inventory a bit and make sure you have enough room to fit all your stuff. Whereas in Diablo 3, absolutely everything is the exact same size. And it's, well, not everything. There's one thing that takes, 2 slots, and there's things that take 1 slot. So it's kind of just dumbed down version for console. Which is why I hate it.
Okay. Anyway, now that we're done with that.
Now that we're done ranting about that.
Let's talk about the good stuff.
Let's talk about the good stuff.
1 and 2.
So, it might give somebody pause. Hold your theological horses with Diablo. This is not a satanic game.
No, it is certainly not. In fact, the whole point of it is that you slay demons.
Right.
And you are not playing as one.
All
by
of
any
Doom,
means.
but action RPG.
Yes. Like Doom, in as much as you kill demons.
Yeah.
And there end the similarities.
Right, yeah. Completely different games, but...
So yes, you are the one, beating up the baddies and doing justice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yep.
Glad we got that sort of...
got that out of the way.
Kind of the cool things about Diablo 1 is that it was one of the first procedurally generated games. Like, the whole entire game was, aside from, like, the starting town, everything was all procedurally generated. There's, like, similar tiles where they have, like, 20 different tiles, and you put 4 of them into the room.
Now, does progression through the story depend on, like, you hit, like, different benchmarks
in as much as there is a story? But, like, you'll work your way through the dungeon, find an enemy character who kind of will talk to you before you fight them.
Mm-hmm.
So, a little bit.
I suppose there's, like,
and you also,
range
like,
of parameters.
Read books and do all that stuff. It's not just all directly dumped on your head.
Yeah. And then there's, like, I suppose, like, different parameters and, like, patterns and things that, like, they built, like the procedural generation uses.
Well,
so, like,
yes, that is
levels.
how procedural generation works.
Yeah.
Is it like one cohesive world, or is it like levels?
It's levels.
Okay.
It's kind of
each level is generated randomly.
Yes.
You go into them.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like 20 floors, I believe, in a dungeon. So it's just kind of as you work your way down. And it was kind of designed to be, like I said earlier, a very replayable experience. But
right.
So you could just, you fire it up, you work your way through it, and you put it down from there.
Mm-hmm. It's not going to be the same way twice per se.
Yeah. But the idea was that it's kind of a finite, self-contained run.
Mm-hmm.
You go from the starting point to Diablo, and it's done there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Diablo 2 is a bit more of, your run doesn't end, so to speak, when you defeat Baal, And that, there's kind of a story tie-in to that. At the end of Act 5, when you defeat Baal, he shatters the World Stone, which is this thing that kind of keeps the world intact.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyrael opens a portal to a new dimension that happens to be harder than the last one.
Okay.
Nice.
New Game
so
Plus.
you kind of just, it's sort of like the first New Game Plus idea, but it doesn't go on infinitely. No, there's only 3 tiers of that.
Okay.
But once you get to Hell difficulty, you can just kind of grind infinitely at various bosses, and I mean, there's lots of things to do in the end game, but it was kind of a very distinct departure from Diablo 1, which was meant to be self-contained, whereas Diablo 2, you were meant to kind of just go after you kind of beat the story. There was more to do after that.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't repeat the main story. You moved on. Yeah.
Well, you didn't really move on.
Which is more common.
Beat the same guy over and over.
Which is more common in games these days, I suppose.
It is.
Than it was at the time.
But Diablo 2 was a pioneer of that sort of gameplay paradigm.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of is historically, I suppose, significant in the game world.
I mean, that's what a lot of Blizzard's games were like.
And then they took them and
then they ruined them all.
Yes. You ruined them all.
Let's see, what else? Yeah, there's a lot of variation in aesthetics in Diablo 2 versus Diablo 1, which is, very much modeled after this gothic cathedral slowly descending into a molten lava lake with a giant demon in it.
Sounds about right.
Whereas Diablo 2 was like, first we're in this kind of grassland with some rocks in it, and now we're in a desert, and now we're in a swamp, and now we're in hell, and now we're in a mountain.
A little more variety of place.
Right, because Well, they had the luxury of being able to design the whole world in the second game, right?
Yes.
Whereas the first
I mean, Diablo 2 is still procedurally generated.
Okay.
But, like, there are some more fixed pieces to it.
Yeah.
But it is
There's some linearity to it.
No, I mean, sort of.
In terms of like overarching
it
structure.
Is very linear in like overall, I would say. But like within a given area,
it's still pretty open.
It's still very different. And there were some levels that were just very poorly designed. If you've ever played it, the maggot layer is like one that one of the creators of the game, he and his wife stream on Twitch, and he's talked about how he regrets making that level just because it was so painful to wind around, and it was so like, you know, it was very different from the design of the rest of them.
Sort of an aberration.
Yeah, that one was a mistake. I'd do that one over again if I could.
Good that he admits it.
Well, yeah. He's pretty critical about his own work. Kind of.
Sure. I get it.
Wants to be doesn't care about making money out of it. He just wants to make a great game. I mean, he's responsible for like some of the most impactful things in the gaming industry. Like, he was the one who came up with the idea of heroes for Warcraft 3, which in turn is the reason the MOBA genre exists, because of a custom game that made that the original Dota mod. So like effectively he was the one who is like responsible for the MOBA genre, which is pretty crazy. But he likes to push the space of game design and come up with new, unique, weird angles, and sometimes they don't work out.
Yeah,
that comes with the territory of pushing boundaries.
Yeah,
sometimes the boundary was there for a reason.
Other times it's expanding.
It's always expanding.
Well, expanding the horizon.
Yeah. But it ends successfully and creates a unique, cool idea that spins off into its own thing. But yeah. Another thing that I think is really cool about Diablo 2 in particular is it has this synergy system where when you allocate points into skills within a certain like skill tree, they're called, but it's like a roughly a thematic space of abilities. They kind of improve each other
synergistically.
So, yes, that is hence synergy.
Oh yeah.
That's what the system is called.
Yeah.
But it really not enforces, it like rewards you for kind of focusing on a particular aesthetic or like branch of abilities.
It's not arbitrary. Like if you go that way, it actually like it
allows you to make something very thematic that still works
and molds into a play style. Could you say? Yeah. Which is also kind of ahead of its time in some ways.
Well,
yeah.
I don't.
Or well,
no,
I feel like that customization is.
Yeah, that's been around, since.
It's a carryover from like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
and a lot of influence from EverQuest and things like that.
Sure.
David Brevik played a lot of EverQuest, so he draws some inspiration from that too. But so it rewards you for kind of building an aesthetic whole instead of like kind of min-maxing everything from just picking the most powerful things out. You actually have to invest into some things that aren't, how am I trying to say this? You maximize one sort of domain of things, which is cool. Like,
it forces you to actually choose like a style, instead of just mixing and matching all the way,
which some people like, but Diablo 3 kind of leans more towards that direction, and it's much more mix and matchy. But yeah,
I like it in games where you have themed things for your
character
very,
that very
work.
Themed.
Yeah, and they go together and they're complementary, and it's not just an arbitrary. Like it serves a purpose.
And that's very much what that's designed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Yeah, that's kind of what I had.
Cool.
All right.
It's a pretty short game to play through. I mean, Diablo 1 is actually super, super short.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably get through it in a day if you wanted. If you're brand new to it, you probably wouldn't be able to.
You need to get good at it first before you can
get good.
Do it.
Also, if you're going to do it, I highly recommend you get the Beelzebub mod. Beelzebub. Beelzebub. A game made in 1997 obviously does not run on modern computers.
Need like a DOS box?
No, but it doesn't work. It does not look good on a 1080p monitor.
Yeah, it wasn't made for.
But there's a mod out there that will put it in modern resolutions and stuff. So
okay,
you can get it on GOG. Good old games. And Diablo 2 you can get from the Blizzard website, but similarly it's if you dare. Hopefully they don't delete it like they did with the original Warcraft 3. They're just like, nope, you don't get that game anymore. Which I'm still mad about.
Yeah, that's kind of a dumb.
But anyway, yes, it is still available to be purchased and played.
Well, what elements of truth can we as Catholics draw from Diablo?
Killing demons is good.
Yeah.
Don't
be gone evil from your
Don't
midst.
put demon gems in your forehead.
Don't demon gems in your forehead.
Mm-hmm.
But to be serious, respect demonic powers. Don't take them for granted or try to tackle them on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to refer them to beings who are capable of handling that.
Yeah. It's that's kind of the thing about the modern world is I think people have kind of forgotten they'll
actively will be like, yeah, Satan's my bro. I'm just like, shut up. Do you realize what you're saying?
Yeah, it's all trite and silly to them. But
yeah,
it's just
but really that's bad.
That's really bad.
It's not good.
Exorcists are it's still a thing. It's not just in movies. I was reading an article the other day where it's this exorcist was kind of bemoaning the fact that people think it's horror movie stuff when it's actually no, it's spiritual healing, and it's not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real thing. It's convincing people he doesn't exist is in the devil's toolbox. Angels and demons are very much a part of our reality, whether we realize it or not. So combat the powers of evil in your life as they may be present. Yeah, I don't know. There is a devil and he does not want you to go to heaven. We want to go to heaven. So enlist the powers of the angels and the saints and of course our Heavenly Father to overcome evil. That is the main takeaway. This is obviously the game sounds obviously like a very much fictionalized envisioning of the battle between heaven and hell, but it's to be expected. It's a video game. It's for funsies.
It is.
The thing that I think games also sort of gloss over is the fact that, and it's a good thing for us to remember too, is that even though bad things happen in the world, good does always win in the end. So, and there is no equivocation between God and the devil because, obviously God is all powerful and the devil is a creature. So there is no sort of Eastern spirituality has sort of the dark light, back and forth, but
even more or less.
Mm-hmm.
But that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. Where am I going?
I don't know. Where are you going?
But yeah. Any other elements of truth? You want to?
That's kind of
the main thing.
That's the main
one.
One.
It's a classic battle of good and evil type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just don't let the video game-ness fool you, or not fool you, but
they take it seriously.
Yeah,
it's not tongue in cheek about it or anything.
No.
You know,
don't fall into the culture's pitfall of not
that,
taking it seriously.
That.
If anything, I suppose the game would give you pause and make it take you seriously to an extent. On that note, goodness. What are some elements of goodness in the game? You're fighting evil.
Killing demons is good.
It is good to not put demon jewels in your head.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the opportunity to rescue people and
from the power of
save
darkness.
them from the powers of evil and free the world in general. So
yeah. Beauty.
Yeah.
Graphics mod to make it work on modern computers.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder to some degree with this, but
and as far as 1997 goes, I mean,
it's when you look at it on a modern screen, you're like, I can see no things. I can't see anything, but you know,
optimized for that.
If it's to your taste, it's quite like, you know, not dark. In so far as, well, it is dark in so far as grim and bloody, but it's also dark as in like not much light. And I like that sort of aesthetic, you know. I like the shadowy, you know, what's gothic around the corner sort of thing. But it's not for everyone. I find it to be very beautiful. I know many people might not.
Well, and then Diablo's got quite the fan base, so it must have had a bit of an appeal to a broad audience. So I doubt you're alone in that. Unity.
As I said, it is united primarily around its like this gothic, grim sort of aesthetic. You know, there are places, especially in Diablo 2, where they kind of upheave that a little bit. Like the desert is obviously, you know, blindingly bright all the time. You can't make it dark. I mean, it does. There's like a night and day cycle.
Oh, okay.
So it does get dark there sometimes, but it still is. I mean, the middle of a desert is not going to be a Gothic cathedral. But they still manage to kind of tie in that grimness with, you know, assorted corpses and, you know, NPCs strung up on poles and all that sort of thing. So united in its grimness and goriness.
And
the stark reality.
It sounds like the first game has a unity to its structure. The procedurally generated dungeon, beginning to end, it's like this nice cohesive little package that you can go through several times, and it changes every time.
Certainly.
So, game design wise, it's very cohesive and unified.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier with the synergy stuff, it's very united around this, like, establishing one sort of aesthetic for your character as well. One set of abilities, one domain. Yep.
Neat. Good stuff. Good stuff.
We will have to play through it one of these days.
Is it multiplayer?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Very much.
How?
Both of them are.
How many players?
Up to 8.
Oh, okay.
For Diablo 2. I don't know about 1. I think it's only 4.
I know you said like this was one of your main games growing up. That
I have thousands of hours in Diablo 2. Thousands. So
between you and your brother and your dad.
Yeah. That was kind of our family bonding experience.
The thought of playing a video game with my dad strikes me as very strange. We have very different dads.
Yes, we do.
I don't think I've ever once seen him touch a video game.
My dad played a bit when he rented like the NES in the 80s and whatever.
Yeah.
My dad is the reason I play games.
The most recently I've seen Dad play was while he was unemployed. He played Luigi's Mansion.
Oh, okay.
And he got he beat it. He got all the way to the end of it. So
I imagine curiosity is what gets him on that.
I think one of the things is he stopped playing after they went 3D because he kind of just gets motion sick.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Luigi's Mansion has like that fixed camera, so that he didn't have that problem.
Yeah, I can think of a whole host of games that would probably be bad news for your dad to play.
Oh yes, very much so. But yeah,
cool. All right, well, good episode. I guess from here on out, we're going to be recording with Riley remote.
Yep, I'll be shipping off to seminary within the next week. So.
Within a few days of this episode releasing. So good luck to Riley and his seminary studies, and we'll try to keep bringing him back for more. We'll figure out.
There'll be some spotty uploads during the transition. We may not all be there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll be all there. The uploads will always be there. Yeah. Who is on them will vary
a lot,
right?
But we're gonna keep bringing stuff out because we like doing this, and it's been a good run so far. So if you want to,
2 of our listeners,
stick with us.
If you want to keep supporting the podcast, you can listen on Google Play, Stitcher. Well, so Google Play is going to be YouTube Music soon, but whatever. Stitcher, Spotify is the main place that people seem to be listening. So thank you for that. iTunes, or no, Apple Podcasts. I said that already. Yeah. Stitcher. All those platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Palapapis and Facebook as well. Email us if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions. We'll get to your suggestion eventually. You know who you are.
If you have suggestions.
Yeah.
If you are Faith, sorry, we haven't watched Aquaman yet.
I need to do that.
We need to do that.
I mean, I've seen it. I don't think you guys have seen it.
I haven't.
Yeah, it's all right, but we'll get to that. We're gonna get to it. We're gonna do it.
Promise.
We promise.
All right. Well, we will. To whatever extent it may be, we will talk to you again next week. Sayonara.
Bye.
Bye, Lo.